Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be making a very special drawing slash comic for one of my new favorite people, Oko Tonushi. And they have given me a unique challenge that I'm really looking forward to whipping up today. So essentially what I have been tasked with, and I hope they don't mind me sharing, I am getting the opportunity to combine two of my favorite things to draw, being Anxiety Fairy, which is one of the comic series that I'm very passionate about drawing, and I draw pretty frequently. It was actually my first little comic series that I started making just a few months ago, really. And number two being Buds. Because I have a stupid sense of humor. But apparently so does my new favorite person, and that makes me really happy. So I'm going to try to combine these two great loves of mine and make something hopefully amusing for Oko. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Now, to give you an idea of how my process works, I come into every comic with a basic idea of how it's going to go. At least for the most part. Some of them I map out really well ahead of time, down to I know like exactly what they're going to say, exactly what the expressions are going to be. But for the most part, when I start a comic, I have a general idea, and I know roughly what the dialogue's going to be and how many panels there are going to be. So that's what I'm starting with on this one. I know the idea of how I want it to go, but once I get in drawing, I might change it up a bit. We just don't know, but we're gonna have fun with it, because this is probably going to be one of the less serious pieces that I do, and it probably won't be 100% like all my other little Anxiety Fairy comics, but because it is a little challenging to incorporate something as silly as butts into something as serious as mental illness. But I'm going to do my damnedest, so this one's for you, Oko. Alright, so first I'm going to start. I'm going to have a panel with my main character walking along and have Anxiety Fairy go poof. Now that I'm looking at it, I don't know if I want these panels these spacious. I don't really think I like them that wide. But you know what? Whatever. I might get rid of the panels. No. We're just gonna go. We're just gonna dive in. We're gonna go. We're gonna see where it takes us. Okay. Because this is gonna be very spread out at first. Okay. So let's get a basic face shape going, and to save time on some of the things that I draw repeatedly and I try to make very consistent, I will sometimes use a little stamp that I've pre-made just to keep basic things looking uniform from comic to comic. So, like here, I've got a little basic face shape. You know what? No, you're better than that. You deserve more than that. I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to go freehand this. All right. So let's see. I want to have enough room. I don't like the size of that pencil. Okay. I want there to be enough room on the bottom to where you can see the legs, because legs are going to be very important when we're making a comic about butts. Okay. And if you happen to hear little squeaks and strange noises, I have a new puppy that I am babysitting today. Her name is Mochi, and she is a little Maltese floof. I already have one Maltese that we got several years ago. So now this new little puppy is just shaking things up. I've never had a puppy before. My older dog was already an adult when we adopted her. So I am learning how to take care of a puppy. I assure you, though, it can't be any more challenging than taking care of a toddler. So I'm going to have my main character looking super happy, just walking along. do. All right. She's in a really good mood. She's out in public, just doing her thing. This is another thing. Like I mentioned, I struggle with consistency. So you might see me redraw the same element over and over and over. And if it gets to the point where I feel like it's going to be really tedious for you all, I try to speed through it. And I think that's okay. Just gonna clean that up a little bit. She's gonna be really happy walking along. She's got things to be happy about. She's having a good day and nothing's gonna spoil her mood, but we already know that something eventually will. Okay, so just walking along, being out in public, feeling super confident. Have her arms swinging a little. Paddle hands. Now that looks like she's like lunging forward. Okay. All right. So I normally have my characters in the same kind of, I won't say uniform, but the same basic attire from comic to comic. And that's because I don't feel like clothes should be the point. Sorry, that wasn't me, that was my chair. I'm in a really squeaky chair while I'm doing this. I'm in my husband's office today. But anyway, so I don't like to change up the clothes too much. Just a plain gray sweatshirt. That's what I've usually got my little person in. She doesn't like to draw attention to herself. She's just in a gray sweatshirt. Gray is comfy. Gray is safe. As are sweaters. Okay. But in this comic, we are going to change her attire just a little bit for the sake of the story. That's usually the only time that I will mess with my character's outward appearances, when it's used to tell a story. And my puppy just dumped her food on the floor. Okay, cool. This might be a very interesting recording. I apologize if I have to keep either pausing or stopping to wrangle my tiny thing. Okay. Well, it doesn't look like she's walking. It looks like she's a freaking statue. Okay. So, Oko Tonushi. So, I got a little bit excited. I don't know if that's your true name or if that's a username, but it definitely sounds Japanese. And I am a little bit of a Japanophile. I actually studied abroad in Japan, not once but twice. Once as a high school foreign exchange student, and then for a year when I was in college. So I love the culture. I love all things Japan. If you couldn't tell by my dog's name, we named her Mochi. But surprisingly, Mochi wasn't one of the things that I was a huge fan of. I just never... it's like, I feel like a dessert. If it's going to be a dessert, make it sweet. And Mochi was just never quite sweet enough. But I have American tastes when it comes to sweets. Almost named her Onigiri, because that was my favorite junk food when I was in Japan, was onigiri. And I thought it would be cute to name her that, because she is like a little, like she's very white, you know, she's just a white puffball, so like a rice ball filled with meat. And I could call her Oni for short, which means, I think, monster or demon, which was funny to me. I don't know if I love her legs like that. I don't think I do. I think I hate those. I think I'm gonna redo that a little bit. Okay. So anyway, if you are either Japanese or enjoy Japanese culture as I do, you're in good company. Because I will absolutely talk Japan stuff with you. Love it. I still am not 100% in love with those legs. I feel like they're a little too long for her body, which is usually very short. Let's fix this. We're gonna fix it, guys. I'm not gonna give you a sub-quality product, so if I don't like it and I'm not happy with it, I would not ever expect you to be happy with it. Now, that's not to say that you might not like the things that I think are cool, because I do have an interesting style and sense of humor, but I often find very stupid things funny. Now I just feel like her arms are a little bit short. Just a little bit. But again, quality. It's important. Okay. I also like your name. Tonushi. It just reminded me of the word tanushi. Otanoshi. For fun. So I was like, oh, that's a fun sounding name. It's like whenever I would go to Japan and I would tell people that, you know, I lived at least for a while in Ohio, they'd be like, oh, that's a happy sounding place, because Ohio is synonymous for good morning, or Ohayou gozaimasu. Like, oh, that's a happy sounding place. Okay, so she's just strolling along, being herself, and what I haven't told you yet is these pants are going to be kind of funky colored. So, one thing that I will probably use a stamp for, and I'm sorry, is the Anxiety Fairy. I have her looking exactly the same in every single comic, and that's really hard to do freehand. So I am going to use a stamp that I've made of her. And you can see all my little bullshit. Other little stamps that I've made. I hope that doesn't ruin any of the magic or mystery for you. But like with comics, I would think that a lot of comic artists probably use that technique where they'll stamp stuff. I don't claim to be a super hardcore artist. I mean, I often refer to my art as stupid art. That's not to be self-deprecating, but I make art about stupid things. And I try to make it as high quality as I can. But at the end of the day, it's more about the joke and the story than I think the art. So there she is. She's going poof. And there's going to be some background stuff going on here. I won't agonize over that just yet. I want to get the basic stuff down first. But let's see. So she's strolling along, and suddenly, poof, Anxiety Fairy. And they're going to start a dialogue. So this is one thing I will do. I will show you how. So now that I've drawn her kind of freehand, if I want her to look, I want her to look the same. I hate Siri so much. I never use her. I'm trying to do a screen capture. There we go. That did it. So you can see how I do that. Okay. So I've got a screen capture. I'm saving to photos. I'll come up here to my little shapes tool and I'll click add. So I'm going to add a new shape. That'll open a new program. I do almost everything in Adobe. I will sometimes flip between art programs. I'll do like Adobe Capture, or not Adobe, I'll do Procreate. Oh, sorry, you just saw a bunch of pictures of me and my floof. And I'll do Comic Draw. Just for storyboarding. So I think that's an okay shape. Okay. So now I have a stamp of exactly what I just made. So if I want, I'm going to make a new layer. I like to layer things out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to keep her with the same carefree little expression, and I'm going to have Anxiety Fairy over here just essentially shitting in her ear. As she do. As she does. Do I want her eyes to be closed? Have her doing like a cute little, yep. Let me see how I feel about that. I know she's going to be saying something in this panel. So, you know what? I'm going to redo that. Oh, I think it's just bold because my original drawing was bold. I didn't quite want her to be that dark, like the outline to be that thick. In fact, I think I want to keep a lot of her body because the pants are important to the story. So we're gonna keep her just strolling and carefree. But I'm gonna mess with her expression a little bit. I'm gonna erase these down here. Okay, let's figure out this expression. If we don't like it, we can change it back. I don't like what I just did then. I'm gonna leave the eyelashes as kind of a guide. Those are giants. Okay. So she's super proud of herself because she's done something fun. We're wearing funky pants. Her eyes are a little high. At least this other one is. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to make it a little bit lower. I like it. I think I want to add some. I'll do that later. Some movement. Okay. So then we're going to have little Anxiety Fairy over here again. Nope, not that. Yeah, you can see past comics if you follow a lot of those. Some comic little snippets from my other series. Again, probably ruining the magic just a little bit. But I think it's fun sometimes to let everyone know what kind of goes into the process. I like learning about it from other artists, seeing how they do what they do. And let me tell you, other artists are way cooler than I am. Because, man, there are some that can just freehand bang out like perfect things that just look amazing and consistent from panel to panel. But that's one thing that I sometimes have to remind myself, because I'll get really jealous of some of these other artists and just I'll get inside my head like, oh man, I need to be doing that, or oh man, I wish my stuff was as detailed and amazing as that, and I wish I could do them that quickly or whatever. But I've only been making comics for really just a few months. I started doing it as a way to blow off steam. And let's see, sorry, I lost track of my train of thought. I started doing it just as a way to blow off a little bit of steam, and things have kind of taken off a little bit from there. Not that I'm getting super popular, but I mean, I'm doing a lot more than I ever thought I would be doing with my comics. And they're reaching a lot more people than I ever thought they would, which is fan-flippin-tastic. Because I think, at least with the Anxiety Fairy comics, I'm really passionate about the message. anxiety is something that's very, very serious. I think not just anxiety, but mental illness in general. It's a huge problem, and I think not only in this country, but in just around the world. I think it affects so many more people than are willing to speak up about it. And I think humor, particularly, can be a very powerful communication tool. And it's the one that I choose to use to say what I want to say about anxiety, which is really I'm just trying to make it more normal, I guess is the word. Stigma is something that is a huge deterrent for a lot of individuals in speaking up and getting the treatment that they need when it comes to mental illness. I can say from personal experience. So I was first diagnosed in 2010. It was while I was actually in Japan. I started having panic attacks, like physical panic attacks. I first started noticing, my extremities would go numb, and then elevated heart rate. Felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like I just had this weight on my chest, and I would get so panicked because I thought that there was something medically seriously wrong with me, and not knowing what it was at the time, that just worsened the symptoms. And this happened a few times. I got to see the inside of Japan's very fine medical establishments, and spoke to many doctors, but language was still, I could speak Japanese, but not as fluently as I needed to articulate what was going on with all of my symptoms. So I ended up at one point making a trip, like an unplanned trip back to the U.S. over one school holiday. Spoke to a neurologist who was like, yeah, all of those things that you're describing, those are panic attacks, you have anxiety. And they prescribed me Xanax. And I'm sorry if I'm boring you with all of the mental health talk. It's like, oh, my anxiety. But again, I think it's important to talk about. So they prescribed me Xanax, and I didn't want to take it. I did not, well, there are two reasons why I didn't want to take it. One, I was really embarrassed by my diagnosis because, you got to think at that time I had spent money and time, and I had worried all of my family thinking that something was very, very, very wrong with me. Like there was a medical problem. I thought it might be a brain tumor or something. I don't know. I had even spent money to make an emergency trip back to the U.S., which wasn't cheap, just to be told what felt like was that it was all in my head. That's what it felt like to me, even though I'm sure that's not what the doctor was communicating. But there was such a stigma attached to mental illness, I think, in my mind, that I was like, I can handle this on my own. I can deal with my anxiety on my own. I will just mind over matter it out and just tackle this shit, and I'll be good. But for the short term, despite that being in my head, I felt panic attacks coming. Again, after this incident, I felt those attacks coming on, and I tried the Xanax, and it was just too much. It wasn't the right prescription for me. I felt very numb. I felt very dissociated from the world. So I decided I didn't want to take that prescription. It didn't help. It wasn't a way that I wanted to live. And knowing now, it really just was not the right call, not the right treatment for me. But for many years after that, I dealt with it on my own. And those are years that I could have been seeking treatment, and I could have had a higher quality of life, because now I am treating what I think is successfully. And there's a huge difference. It's night and day. It's still not perfect. I still have moments, but it's nowhere near what it was. So, I say all that to say, stigma sucks. Stigma can be really harmful to those who are just trying to, I guess, live their life with a secret mental illness. And it keeps people from doing something about it and living the best life that they can. And I think the way to combat stigma is to talk about it openly, positively. And the way that I do is through humor. And I could say more about that. But I will stop for now with the serious, heavy stuff and go back to art because I'm about to draw a butt. And that's what we're here for. Okay. All right. So we've got her saying her stuff in her ear. I actually want to make this expression up here just a little bit more, not quite so happy, but a little bit thoughtful. I even want to, I'm gonna get rid of that eyebrow and I'm gonna get rid of this eyebrow. Haha. And this is another thing that I just don't know how other artists do. Rulers are my other little cheat device. They help me draw straight horizontal lines. Just perfectly straight lines. And I've seen artists, like I've watched other artists do their comics and tutorials and stuff, and they just bang it out, just like, here's a straight line, here's a perfect fucking circle, even though only 4 people in the history of the world have ever been able to do that just without guidance. And that stuff pisses me off. It really does. So sometimes I can't help but get just a little bit jealous. But again, I'm a new artist. I do think perfecting my craft and developing my skills is very important. I really need to stop talking and just draw the shit, you know? Okay, so how do I want this to look? I know it's gonna be her backside. I might have her peeking back a little bit. No, you know what? I think I'm just gonna make this panel mostly a butt. Mostly a butt. Okay, that's what we're gonna go with. But also, I'm gonna do something fun. This is something I don't do often, and kind of split the panel a little bit. So have close up on her butt, anxiety fairy there, and then have her reaction up here. I think that'd be fun. Yes. Yes, can you feel it? Yes, okay. Alright, so this one's mostly butt. What do I want to do? I think I want... go ahead and merge down and create a new layer. I know I'm probably not doing layers right, but whatever. Still figuring out my process, but yes, let's get down to it. Mostly a butt. Okay. No, that's not a good line. So, you know what? Sometimes it's easier to start with butt cheeks. That's too much butt. I know, how could there be too much butt? I just need to have room for a text bubble. So. And I don't know if I'm gonna like the shape of the butt. Sometimes you just don't know how a butt's gonna look until you just bang it out and draw it. Let's see. I've drawn a lot of butts recently. I've had quite a few comics, I think, that I've included butts in. So that looks a little too skinny. Okay. Gonna just really perfect this buttocks. So she's still walking. That's legs too skinny too. God, I wish my butt looked that good. But go ahead and draw her shirt there. Let's make it mostly true to life. Just have a big old butt. Okay. Oh, that looks terrible. Why did it looked better at first. No, it didn't. That was a lie. You will see me spend a lot of time probably on this butt. So I hope that's okay with you. Because I don't cut corners when it comes to decently shaped booties. I'm just gonna give myself a bad line. Alright, so that looks saggy. I think that's fair. And again, what a delightful combination of topics. Just butts and anxiety. I love it. I love that you came up with that because I don't know that I would have tried to. And I like doing art that challenges my creativity. Yeah. It really makes you think outside the box. And when I say I spent a lot of time thinking about this, I came up with 4 or 5 different ideas how I wanted to tackle this particular request. And I drafted them all out. And I landed on this one as the one that I thought was the funniest and probably truest to my own anxieties. Because the story is going to be, she's got a new pair of pants. She's feeling good about herself. It's in a fun, funky pattern or color. Maybe she's wearing leggings. Nah, whatever. I'll decide when I go to coloring whether they're leggings or whether they're just a fun, funky color of pants. But I'm self-conscious about certain parts of my body, my own butt being one of them. Because it is, I have a big butt and I'm a little bit overweight. But I've always had a big butt, even when I was super skinny. Or skinnier. And I don't necessarily like people looking at it. It's one of the things that I'm always really self-conscious about, and it's the reason why I do kind of wear muted tones, is I don't like to draw a lot of attention to my appearance. Because I just don't like people paying that close attention to something that, I might have a little bit of insecurity about. And so I'm always worried whenever I do have, oh, that's just terrible, do have a new pair of pants or skirt or whatever, the eyes are on my butt. And that makes me very uncomfortable. Again, probably not so much super serious anxiety as my other stuff. Because with all of those, I have an underlying theme. I make them intentionally humorous, but there's an untold story in the background that I think maybe only people who have anxiety really can latch onto and what's the word? Not empathize, but relate strongly with. And that's the things that I'm portraying. It's kind of like the first act of a 2-part act, right? So while the situations themselves and the insecurities and stuff might be relatable to a lot of people, what these situations and encounters really are the spark to what becomes kind of like a fire inside your head that grows out of control. It's the first push into what inevitably becomes a downward spiral. of negative thinking that leads to sometimes panic attacks, and very negative, harmful, anxious feelings. So you don't see the darker side of it, and that's intentional, but I think I leave it open-ended enough to where someone with anxiety might go, I've been in that position and I know what follows, and I know how bad it can go. Because at the end of at the end of all of my comics, she's usually in a state of emotional upheaval. Either she's crying or she's in just very visible, obvious distress. And that doesn't just go away when the comic ends, you know. It gets worse. It builds throughout the comic and it continues to build. But anyway, more super serious anxiety stuff, I guess. It's gonna have her right here looking creepy. Just right there. Yes, I like that. Because I'm weird. I'm just staring at the booty. Ah, shit. I needed to make that another layer. Alright. Take two. I will say that as I'm paying a lot more attention to my art, the process to make a comic is getting much, much longer. So we're still just in the first stage, which is, just drafting. And like this line stage, I guess I call it. And there's still coloring, which probably takes the most time. And then the last thing I do is add text and do touch-ups. I meticulously go over everything and make sure there aren't any, big glaring mistakes that would give me anxiety later. Because no comic is ever just perfect. There's always something. There's always a mistake somewhere that I find later on and haunts me for the rest of my life because it's out in the world. Okay. Let's see. Just gonna have her looking on in horror. Just have this horrified expression. Not so comedic. It'll actually probably be very subdued. But you'll be able to tell she's starting to freak out a little bit by these poisonous words that this bitch of a fairy is just pissing in her ear. And I worry that people think from my comics that I'm just completely, totally mentally unstable. And that's again, just that stigma talking. But like I said, I do manage my anxiety through a combination of medication and mindfulness, which I would recommend to anyone because it's definitely been one of the most beneficial things I've found, are mindfulness techniques. It's a combination of meditation and just intentional thinking, relaxation techniques. It's introduced to me by one of my law professors. So I'll do that pretty often when I do start feeling overwhelmed. Let's see. So I want to just have her face ashen in horror, How do I want to do this? Do I want to have her eyebrows way up here? No. No, I don't like that either. I spend a lot of time, probably the most time, during the drafting stage on expressions. Expressions are so important to telling the story, which makes sense when you consider that anxiety fairy comics are a lot about emotions. So it's very important that they say what I need them to say. But even in all of my other comics, the ones I make for the King Killer Chronicles series and the ones I make for law school, emotions are one of the ways that I tell the joke. They're one of the ways that I let the humor come through. So even if you don't like the words that I use, because writing jokes are hard, maybe you'll get a tickle out of some of the expressions. So the next thing I need to do, I'll come back to the mouth. I want to get her eyes figured out first. Just make them a little wider. It's one of the side effects of my love for Japan is I did for a long time draw and doodle in the anime style. Even though I didn't watch a lot of anime, I read a lot of manga. And so for a while, I tried to copy that style, and it looked just like every other. There are a lot of manga artists out there. And it looked very similar to that. And I've tried to come up with my own little, if you want to call it lazy style. But I think it's kind of a hybrid of some, American and Japanese, maybe chibi styles. I don't know. It makes me happy. Whenever I doodle, this is usually the style I doodle in. I joke that I can't draw hands, and that's really not it. I do these paddle hands. Guys, you see, there are no fingers. And I think that is reminiscent of chibi. But I actually can. I can do, if forced, I can draw a hand. I just don't like to. I like to spend time on things that tell the story. And I think a lot of expression and a lot of storytelling can be done without wasting, just a garbage amount of time drawing fingers and making them look realistic. Because it's also one of the things that's really, really easy to screw up. And if you screw it up, it throws it off. It throws off the reader's attention. It ruins the storytelling. It wrecks the illusion that you try to create. So, I don't draw hands. Unless forced. Alright. I might tweak that expression a little later. I may just leave it at that. Yeah. And this one's going to be a fun panel too. Because it's going to be completely random. Her reaction to, and I don't think her expression in this panel is serious enough to show the depth of her panic. So I need to make this a little bit bigger. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Here. I think this might be a good... Yeah, I got good use of that. There we go. Once we get to the coloring stage, I might speed up through quite a lot, actually. Again, just a lot of time on expressions. So important. There are a lot of things that I'll say, you know, I don't need to spend my time on this, but not expressions. Okay. I do want to have her looking a little bit concerned here, I think. Maybe a little bit more concerned. I want those eyes to just really be swimming with emotion and concern. I don't like that lip now with those eyebrows. It's too straight. If you hear that grinding sound, that's my puppy eating my chair. There we go. I like that. I like that. Okay. What are you doing, tiny floof? Little monster. And that again was my chair. Oh, goodness. All right. So this last one is going to be a fun fun panel. I'm going to have Anxiety Fairy doing her poof thing on one side, and this one just going totally ham and ripping her pants off. Yes, I think that's the way we're going to go. Okay. So we're going to make her, we're going to start fresh. We're not going to do a stamp on this one, because everything about her mannerisms is going to be different. And just have her kind of screaming. I don't know if I like that. But this might work. I can do a straight line. I think I like that. Let's zoom in. Get down to the nitty-gritty detail. And again, if you hear that gnawing sound, that is Mochi doing her thing. Just don't understand Mochi as an edible thing. And in Japan, to be fair, there's not as much super sweet stuff as there is here in the US. It's there, you can find it. Like even the cakes, I noticed, like if you go to a bakery, a lot of the cakes, they'll have like a whipped cream based frosting, and here in the US we're very much used to very sugary, like over sugary buttercream and other types of just really overpoweringly sweet stuff. I couldn't find as much of that in Japan. Not that I was out just prowling around like, ooh, I need a cake, I'm an American. But mochi, I did have it one time that I thought was pretty good. It was with the teriyaki. I want to say it was like teriyaki sauce, which sounds really gross. But I think I had it at a festival. I think it was like the same style that they did like the yakitori on a stick, teriyaki sauce in little plastic containers. It was good. But the reason I named my dog that is just she just reminds me so much of a little mushy ball of rice. She is small and white and fluffy. I almost named her mashed potato. What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay. Okay, so she's just going ham. She's flinging these pants off of her. Okay, so here's how we're gonna do this. Yes. Don't want to have it. She looks like she's dabbing if I do it that way. Definitely want to have her like in a really weird, not normal position. I might change that, but still. Okay. That doesn't seem right. There we go. The pants have been ripped wildly from her body and are being torn or tossed away. Just silly, you know. I tried and I tried and I tried and I couldn't find a way to make this not just silly. Because even the other ones that I had, I brainstormed like, okay, like when you get up in a movie theater and you gotta put your butt in people's faces to get past. I thought about doing one that dealt with that. Similar with like airplane seats, having to nudge past people to get into your seat. Like if you got the window aisle and you get on late because you didn't do pre-boarding because you're an idiot or didn't get to the airport soon enough. So you gotta shimmy your way into your seat. And I thought about doing one about that, but eventually landed on pants. Because this is one I actually feel a lot of self-confidence about. Or what's the word? Self-consciousness. Yes. Haha, big words. I went to college. Dang it. So I think this one's funny for the irony. She's torn her pants away because they attract a lot of attention, and now she's in her underwear. And I might have some bystanders looking on. Are her legs too long now? I think they're okay. Maybe, maybe just a little bit too long, actually, yeah. I think that one's okay. I think this one's funky. Okay. Still really long. So I know I've said it already, I've messaged back and forth a little bit with Oko, but thank you so much for supporting my art. I was really glad to hear that you liked my Anxiety Fairy comics because those are so close to my heart. And if anyone who's watching who is not a patron, if you would like me to make something silly for you, you can drop me a line by going over to my Patreon and becoming a patron. And I can assure you that it goes, your patronage, your money, goes to good use through my Patreon. Either put everything that I make, right here, I'll give you the breakdown. Half of everything that I make, I match. And I put back into donations that benefit charities that advance treatment and research for mental illness. So I've had at least one patron for 3 months now. My first donation went to the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation, which is a wonderful organization that provides research grants to individuals who, are researching treatments specifically for mental illness. So 100% of proceeds go to funding grants, which I think is really, really important in helping just get people more access to and better treatment options. I don't think I have a poof saved. But anyway, so that was the first month, and then for the past 2 months, I actually combined my last one into one lump that went to Mental Health America, which is one of my favorite organizations for direct resources to those suffering from mental illnesses. They provide a lot of good information if you just want to know more about mental illness, everything from how to find a doctor to ways that you can manage your anxiety. Like, they have some information about mindfulness. They have just a ton of resources. They provide a lot of good resources and information that can directly help someone who might be struggling with mental illness. I link to them on my website. If anyone goes there, if it's like, say, for people who like my anxiety fairy or relate strongly to it, I direct people to a page that I've got set up that has got some mental health resources, and they're one of the organizations that I point to. They're actually, I think, the first one aside from the crisis line. But anyway, okay, so here's our basic story comic setup. I don't like that swoosh. Just get some action lines going, so you can see that the pants have been ripped from her body. So she's flinging them. And all right, so I suppose I do need some kind of background. We're just gonna merge this down, create a new layer. I'm not gonna make it super detail oriented. I need to show that she's like out in public. So here's what I'm gonna do, guys. I'm going to do something strange. Okay. No, that's not what I needed. Shit. Okay. New layer. Gonna find my stamp again and get it looking about the same size and shape as I've got this one. I don't really need it to be perfect. So I'm going to hide this, which will allow me to work on a basic background back here. So I'm gonna have her walking along, probably just a normal sidewalk. I might have someone on a bench behind her. I think that might be what I do. That's simple enough, and I can make that consistent enough by just copy pasting this image that I'm about to make right now. Okay, so maybe have person chilling over here. Oh, do that. All right, so just have them like on a bench. Maybe this is at a park or something. So I'm gonna draw a park bench. Just telling the story. Okay, I think that's bench-like enough. Okay. Okay. And let's do some horizontal lines just to get those bench legs going. Okay. I'm gonna have a person sitting over here, just mind their own business. I'll go ahead and erase. I'll have it be a woman. I think it'll be less creepy if it's a woman, because it's gonna be the person who sees her ripping her pants off. Definitely less creepy if it's a woman. Okay. So she's just gonna be sitting there, maybe reading a book. No, maybe reading a newspaper. Even though you don't see a woman just sitting on park benches reading newspapers a lot. Maybe she's feeding birds or something. Maybe she'll be feeding birds, because then the birds will have reactions too. Sorry for the long dramatic pauses, guys. Okay. So here I'm gonna have my old lady. Just gonna be chilling on a bright sunny day in the park feeding her birds. And then a woman strips in front of her for no goddamn reason. Make them just a little bit lower. She's gonna be looking down. I know that's cliche, just an old woman feeding the birds. Yeah, whatever. Who says she can't like feeding birds because it's cliche? Let the old woman live. Okay. like the way this is turning out, guys. Let's do this. If I give her eyelashes, ears, help me with dimensions. It's gonna have her hair up in a bone. So maybe she's leaning down to feed her birds with this hand. And she's got her hand resting on her cane with this one. Shoop. First, let's get rid of some of these lines that are going to bother me. Okay. So now I'm going to fix this arm because I don't like it. And then there's just a bird. This is not my best bird, guys. But again, things that are important to the story I will expend a lot of effort on. Making a bird look like a bird when I've not made many attempts to draw birds before. I will give it an effort, but not. I'm not going to spend so much time when I think it'd be better for everyone. It'd be a much better use of my time focusing on more important details. Don't you think? Oh shit, that doesn't look like breadcrumb. And to be fair, I'm gonna make these breadcrumbs look like breadcrumbs and at least the right color in the coloring stage, which we are getting very close to. She will see momentarily, because what I'm gonna do, now that I've got our old lady feeding the birds over here on the bench, you know, let's give this bench a back. Gave that bench a back. Benches love backs. I'm sorry, guys. Did I mention I'm stupid? I have a stupid sense of humor. I think I've mentioned that before. Shit. Somehow I got the angle off. What the frick ever. Oh well. I'll fix it later if it's bothering me that much. Okay. Oh, that's why. I had the whole image inverted. Okay. Now the next thing I need to do, since we've given ourselves a background, is make a back background. And I'm not going to spend much time at all on this shit. It is going to be grass and sky, and we're going to call it a day. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay. So now what we're going to do, because... Oh shit. Alright, I need to undo a little bit of this. Even that. Okay. Okay. And there's a reason for it. It'll help us in the long run. Okay. We want the background to be like its own separate picture on its own little layer. That way I can cheat and copy it from layer to layer. So these basic things are going to stay the same. Alright, now what I'm going to do, like I did earlier. Then I'm going to get me a good little trimmed screenshot. Done. Saved photos. And I am going to make my layers visible. I'm going to paste this sucker. First I need to create. Because she's walking along, I'm going to place her over here a little bit. And then all I have to do is carry these lines over. Oh no. Oh, I'm erasing those. Those are my breadcrumbs. Sorry, sometimes I see little things like that and I'm just like, mistake, attack. Okay. Uh-oh. Can't forget that. Okay, now let's get rid of these over here. Okay, and I'm not really going to do anything. Either of these two. What I am going to do my dog outside is going crazy for some reason. Oh. Neighbors across the street are just moving stuff out of their car like normal human beings, so my older dog is losing her freaking mind. She doesn't like it when normal people do normal things within the immediate vicinity of our house. She's a bitch. cleaning up, you know, those kind of guidelines I made earlier. Should make them lighter because I'm going to have to retouch the edges of this panel. See where I'm getting a little close. I'm messing with some lines we didn't want to mess with. Actually, I think all of these I can be a little careless with since we don't have any other artwork yet on this layer for these below. Okay, now, all right. So she's just going to be over here and we're going to make her expression. Fun. Okay, and again, get those lines. It looks like she's naked a little bit right now. We'll fix that in the next stage, which is going to be coloring, and I think we're about ready to go there, guys. I think as far as hard detail goes, the last thing we were going to do is change this woman's expression just a little bit. That was too much. Make her look like, what the hell is this girl doing? Oh, those are like Oscar the Grouch eyebrows. Gotta be really careful with this pen sometimes. Okay. I'm even gonna have this little bird. Kind of looking over here like, what the fuck? Otherwise, he's just chilling. He's not important. Okay. All right. I think what we're gonna do, I'm gonna take a quick break, and then when I come back, we are going to do fun stuff with colors, and I will probably speed up through most of that. I'll probably speed up through a lot of the coloring and just let you guys see kind of how it unfolds, because it does tend to get very tedious, very boring, but I definitely want you to see what it's like. All right, so I'm going to take a quick break and we'll come back. And we're back. And now we're going to get down to the fun-ish part of coloring. But before I do that, I'm going to fix this mistake that I have noticed. And I'm sorry if I do this a lot. But I tend to be a little... If I notice something, and it really bothers me until I fix it. So, alright, back to coloring. I usually start with hair. I don't know why. I always do. Especially this character's hair. So basically what I'm doing is I'm using this one caramel-y color on an opaque setting. That way I can go over it with the same color and add some details and lines and whatnot. Okay. So, like, I'll add my squiggly bit here, squiggly bit there, and just a quick shadow, little squiggle there. That part nice and defined, yes. And so I do this for every panel. I don't like to switch constantly between colors, so if I know I'm going to be using the same color multiple times across panels, I'll just go ahead and knock it out. Even as I'm doing this, you know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about how I'm still not satisfied with that bud I drew in the fourth panel. But when I get to it, I'll dive into that. For now, I'm just focusing on coloring. And I mentioned I might speed up through this because, as you can imagine, going through the same colors over and over and over and doing the same things that, you know, I don't find to be particularly interesting. It can be a little boring. I really should start like preparing jokes and stuff to get through these lulls. And as I'm drawing this, I'm limited. This might be why you see me keep shooting off and making little errors. Ah, boo. Because one of my arms right now is pinned by a cute little puppy. My newest dog, Mochi, is just chilling in my lap, doing her thing, being tired, and it's heartbreaking. Puppies, man. Why are they so cute? My husband and I both are grade A suckers when it comes to puppies and cute things. It's a good thing that I'm so deathly allergic to cats, and so is my husband. Otherwise, I can imagine having just a billion kittens. I could easily cross that line into crazy cat lady. Signature gray sweatshirt.